In this lecture, we are going to work on the template for a single post. Undoubtedly, this will be one of the most important templates to add to your theme. It'll be used for displaying content for a single post or custom post type. The index template is not suitable for this job. There are two problems with the index template. To better understand, let's view a post on the front end. The first problem with the template is the main content. The index template does not render the entire post. It'll output an excerpt of the post, which is not ideal. Secondly, the layout feels strange. There isn't a point in using columns within the post. We can allow the post content to stretch across the column. In another tab, I have a copy of the static design. Ultimately, this is what we're going for. Luckily, we can reuse the index template to help us recreate the single post template. Most of the styles are the same. It's a matter of rearranging the blocks. Before working on the template, let's check out the documentation for the appropriate file name. On the documentation page, I'm viewing the hierarchy for the single post template. Starting from the top, WordPress will search for a template that contains the single keyword. This is followed by the post type and ID of the post. Secondly, it'll search for the same template without the ID. Lastly, it'll search for the single, singular, and index templates. Our template will be generic. It should apply to all posts. I think the single.html template is a perfect choice. Back in our editor, let's create a file called single.html. Next, let's open the index.html template. Let's transfer the blocks from the index template to the single template. The next step is to begin working on the blocks. Switch over to the full site editor. We're going to switch the template to single post. This option should appear after adding the template to our theme. The first step is to move the blocks outside of the loop. Inside the list view, drag the columns block from the post template block. Place it above the query loop block. Straight away, this placement might seem strange. Thus far, we've been relying on the query loop block to render the post. So, why are we moving the post blocks to a different location? Let's recap the job of the query loop block. Essentially, the query loop block will query the database for posts. This query is based on the URL. After the posts have been retrieved, they'll loop through the results. For single posts, this isn't necessary. We can safely assume there will always be a single post. WordPress will take care of providing a post. Otherwise, it'll render a 404 page. Looping through the results doesn't make sense. Secondly, children post blocks can grab post data without the query loop block. Placing these blocks in the query loop block is optional. By placing them outside the loop, they will grab the first post from the query. Since the page for a single post will always contain a single post, the blocks will be able to render the post content. For these reasons, we're not going to need the query loop block. Delete this block from our template. Next, we can begin rearranging the blocks. As we saw from the static design, the author, date, and comment count blocks should appear at the top of the post. They'll be put in the same row. Add the row block at the top of the first column. Next, move the post author, post date, and comment count blocks into the row block. We're going to run into some problems. The first problem can't be fixed. As of WordPress 6, post blocks will not be able to render a preview of the template without the query loop block. If we were to check out the preview, most of the blocks would render the block's name. The actual content is missing. Unfortunately, we won't be able to test the template from the editor. I highly recommend opening a new tab containing a single post for debugging a template's visual appearance. Let's save the template. Next, let's refresh the page for a single post. The template is perfectly functional. Like I said before, the template won't be functional from the full site editor without the query loop block. However, this is how WordPress recommends creating the single template. Looking closer at the row, the layout is slightly broken. The spacing between the blocks is too wide. The comment count should be moved to the right side. Lastly, the author sits higher than the other blocks. Luckily, we can fix these layout issues through the block settings. Let's head back to the full site editor. First, we're going to modify the row blocks settings. Towards the bottom of the sidebar, we can modify the spacing between each block by updating the block spacing option to 1 rem. After adding this option, the blocks should become closer to each other. Next, let's adjust the margins of the post author block. Previously, we added margins. These margins are not necessary anymore. Remove the margin values from the post author block. Lastly, we can move the post comment count block by adding a class. Unfortunately, this block doesn't support margin values. We can apply margins via a class. On this block, add a class called !ML_Auto. The row is complete. We can move on to the other portions of the template. Back in the list view, let's move the post title block below the row block. The post title block should have a larger font. This step is optional, but since this is the only post, the title should stand out. Let's set the font size to 2.25 rem. Afterward, move the post featured image block below the post title block. Lastly, move the post tags block below the post featured image block. The children blocks of the columns block can be safely deleted. They're not necessary to keep around. There's one more block that needs to be added. In the index template, we displayed the post excerpt. This time, we're going to display the entire post content. Insert a block called post content between the post featured image block and post tags block. We've successfully rearranged the blocks. However, we're not finished yet. There are missing sections from the original template. Let's go back to the static design. Below the post content, there are additional sections. Firstly, there are links to the next and previous posts. Below these links, a comments section is available. There's another problem worth mentioning. The post tags have a different appearance from the index template's post tags. They're similar to the post tags on the sidebar. We should fix this too. Now that we have an overview of what's next, let's begin working on the template. To get started, let's work on the post tags. For reference, the HTML for the post tags can be found in the single.html file. They're under a comment that says post tags. We can stylize the links by applying a class called post content tags. This class should provide the styles we'll need for the block. Back in the full site editor, we're going to modify the post tags block by adding a class called post content tags. The changes won't be visible from the editor since the editor cannot grab posts. We'll verify the design after finishing the template. Let's move on to adding links for the next and previous posts. The HTML for the pagination links can be found under a comment that says pagination. WordPress has dedicated blocks for generating links for the next and previous links. These links will appear side by side. Aligning the links can be done with a row block. However, the links themselves won't be easy to style without custom classes. These blocks don't offer much customization. We will apply the same classes that can be found on the links. Let's add a row block below the post tags block. The pagination links are going to be aligned with Flexbox. Luckily, this block will already apply flex properties to the block. We can move on to applying margins and borders. First, let's enable the appearance of the margin settings. Set the top and bottom margins to 2 rem. The block spacing options should be set to 0. Next, let's modify the border settings. Set the width to 1 px. The style should be solid. The color of the border should be Udemy Gray 200. Lastly, the border radius should be set to 0.5 rem. The row is ready. Let's add the pagination links. Inside the row block, insert two blocks called Previous Post and Next Post. As mentioned before, these blocks will generate links to the previous and next post. There are not a lot of options for styling the blocks. We must resort to classes. In your editor, open the single.html file. Search for a comment that says pagination. The anchor elements will contain a series of different classes for each link. Let's copy the classes from the first link. Next, paste these classes into the class field for the previous post block. Switch back to the editor. Let's copy the classes from the second anchor element. These classes should be pasted into the next post block. Great! I promise we're almost finished. The last set of blocks is for the comments section. Below the row block, add a new block called heading. We are going to quickly add a heading to help visitors identify the comments section. The block will contain the following text: comments. Next, let's update the settings by changing the font size to 1.5 rem. The appearance should be set to medium. Finally, we can add the final block, which is the block for a post's comments. WordPress has a block for creating a UI for comments. In my opinion, the UI matches our theme perfectly. Therefore, we're not going to heavily modify the comments section. However, we will adjust the form. Similar to other blocks, the form is not easily customizable. We must resort to classes. In the single.html template, you can find a copy of the comment form under a comment that says Post Comment Form. We're going to apply the Comments section class to produce the desired appearance of the form. At the bottom of the row block, insert a block called Post Comments. This block will perform two actions. Firstly, it'll output the comments for a post. Secondly, it'll output a form for adding a new comment. It's one of the most comprehensive blocks WordPress has to offer. However, as I said before, it doesn't provide many options for changing the appearance. We must apply classes to alter its appearance. Let's add a class called Comments Section. This single class will do everything that we need it to do. I've included it with the theme for your convenience. You're more than free to check out the CSS for the styles that get applied. With that set, we're officially finished with the template. Let's make a copy of all the blocks from the list view. Next, let's go back to the single.html template file. Replace the current blocks with our new blocks. Before testing the template, we must reset the template. Previously, we saved a copy. refresh the page in the editor. Lastly, reset the customizations. On the front end, we can refresh the page to view the final changes to the template. If you did everything right, you should see a template similar to mine. We fully customized the single template. Pat yourself on the back. Creating this template took a while, but it was completely worth it. Let's continue our journey by creating 2 more templates.